Hey there, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Welcome to day 201 of our Get Your Goals annual challenge. This month we're focusing on relationship goals. And with respect to relationship goals today, we are going to talk about the Lifeline exercise. I use this same Lifeline graphic because it's small enough for me to actually hold up and show. But all you do, and I'll go through the steps quickly, but we're going to do a couple of different tweaks and changes to the Lifeline exercise this time. This time, unless you're doing the relationship with yourself, you are going to team up with someone you're in a relationship with, and you're going to follow these steps to create a joint lifeline. If you are a couple, if you have a partner, if you're in a business partnership or relationship, whatever type relationship you're in, most of our relationships, except for that with ourselves, involve other human beings. And in order for that to work out, what we want to do is we want to share our lifeline, our timeline, our personal timeline. You know, we do timelines in history class and in things like that when we're growing up. It's the same thing, but it's about our life. Instead of it being like a war or a world event or a time period, we're looking at our own time period, the time period of our life from the time we're born. So I was born in 1960, so y'all know how old I am now. And we start with the year we're born, and then we post on the timeline major life events, major things that impacted us, key milestones, key events, just like you would on a timeline, put key dates and events. We're going to do the same thing with our life. And we're going to make sure that we put an arrow continuing past 2023. I've obviously used this one since 2020, 2021. I think 2021 is when I made this graphic, which is really kind of embarrassing, but true. But I still use it because I have put my lifeline on a giant poster board like you'd get at the office supply store or at Walmart or something to do projects. I've got mine on that because I map out each different area and aspect of my life and where it lies on this timeline. So then each year as I'm reviewing it, I just have to do the additional year. I don't have to go back and do all the things. Although I do go back, and as I remember key events, I add them, and then I think about how did they impact each area and aspect of my life and add that to the graph. So how do we do this? How do we create a lifeline exercise? Why do we even care? Grab a magnifying glass. Number one, we do it so that we can better understand and better communicate with one another. So we understand each other's past and present and hopefully future together planning, the way we look at things, the way we view things. Some of the I'm going to talk about the challenges first to doing this because they're important. And if we don't address them, it's pretty hard to do this with another person. Number one, fear of vulnerability. If you're afraid to be vulnerable in your relationship, this timeline exercise, it's either going to be really easy for you because you're going to open up and understand one another better, or it's going to be a real challenge. Time constraints. This can take some time. So if you think you're going to knock it off in like 5 minutes, unless you both have your individual timelines created or lifelines created already, it can be a little time consuming. It can also be very emotional, right? It can be super duper emotional, and we can have emotional overwhelm when we go back and we revisit different events in our life, especially past relationships and things, because they're so fraught with emotion and tied up in our ego, etc. Sometimes we have miscommunication. Sometimes what I say to the other person is not understood the way I intend it. So we want to be careful for hurting one another's feelings, causing more emotional overwhelm, and miscommunicating. We want to be very careful about our communication, meaning actively listen very, very well. And then sometimes there's just plain resistance to change. Now, this isn't necessarily a change exercise. It's just where have I been? Where am I right now? Where do I want to go? So it opens the lines of communication and gets us talking about those things if we might not have been talking about them before. The benefits of doing this lifeline exercise are, of course, increased communication, better understanding one another. It builds empathy and understanding and trust in your relationship. You identify common values and where there might be areas in your relationship that you don't agree, some thoughts or beliefs or past experiences that have left a mark on you that your partner or your person you're in a relationship might not know about. And it also strengthens our ability to communicate with one another. So what are some steps we do with this? Number one, set the stage. Make sure you have a neutral place that you can do this where you won't be interrupted, where it's quiet. And then Make sure you have everything that you need. Bring your lifeline. If you've each individually done a lifeline, it's much quicker and easier to look at them together than it is to start from scratch, and it requires more time. Establish trust. Make sure that you are being trustworthy and that you trust the other person that you're doing this with. We're going to then thirdly list past events. We're going to go through, if you haven't done it yet, and list past events. Then we're going to list our present moment, and talk about where are we right now. And then finally, 5, our future goals. What do we want? This is all about relationship goals. So we ought to be discussing where we've been, what's pertinent and important, and what's impacted us the most, where we are right now in our relationship, and where we want to go. That's how we set goals. And finally, we're going to reflect and connect on the different aspects. This is a terrific not team building, but relationship building exercise. You can use it in teams, but it's really complicated in teams, depending on the relationships. So that's our action item today. Do the relationship goals update to your lifeline. If you've been doing any work with me at all, you've already got a lifeline started, and all it's a matter of doing is adding relationships and going through your lifeline and looking at it and saying, okay, on a scale or on my graph, how has this event impacted my relationship? So for example, my sudden cardiac arrest, how did that impact my relationships? How did having my kids impact my relationships? How did getting divorced impact my relationships? Those things like that. And I want to put those key events on there. Questions about this? Of course, there's a write-up in Guide 17 of the Get Up and Go private Facebook group. Under Guide 17, day 201, there's a write-up step-by-step how to do this, etc. There's also previous write-ups, so if you want a better explanation or more explanations or different explanations for different areas and aspects of your life, you can just search in the search bar on that group page and you'll get lots and lots of information about the lifeline exercise. Otherwise, you can just ask me. That's it. Have fun with this. It is an amazing exercise that has the ability to transform our relationships, and that's why I think it's so powerful. And I talk about it every month in each area and aspect of our life. It's that important. All right, have an awesome day, and I'll, of course, be with you tomorrow.